522 days ago, Dalia Kushnir's two brothers-in-law, Yair and Eitan Horn, were taken hostage by Hamas. Thank God Yair was just recently released, but Eitan remains in the dungeons of Gaza, and Dalia joins us now. Dalia, on day 522, what do you want the world to know?
I want the world to know that we still have 59 brothers and sisters held in Hamas captivity in the worst hell, the worst conditions one can imagine. 24 out of them are still alive, but this is something temporary. And if we don't bring them back now, they're going to be dead. We still have the ability to save lives, and life is sacred in Judaism, in Christianity, in so many cultures and religions. We need to save lives.
What has Yair told you about the conditions of the hostages in Gaza?
He said that it is so bad that he doesn't want to tell us because he wants to prevent us from suffering, and he feels that it's going to be too much for us to know. And we told them that we saw testimonies and we met other released hostages. And we know because we all saw what Hamas has done on the ground on October 7th, 2023. They slaughtered, they raped, they murdered, they burnt entire communities. And he said there is still more cruelty to know, and it's very hard for him to talk about it. So all I can do is imagine, and I can see it in his eyes. You know, he's a broken man. He's a broken man, and he's struggling to bring back trust in humanity. And I think that says a lot.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Let me ask you a question that I don't want to ask you, but I think it's important. Basically, if you hear a lot of things in the West, on Columbia's campus, in Australia, in the UK, a lot of people say Israel's committing a genocide. How would you respond to that?
I would say that Israel, I studied history, okay? So I know, unfortunately, what a genocide is, and I specified in the history of the Second World War and the Holocaust. What Israel is committing is not a genocide. What is happening there, it's a war. And in the war, you always lose. There are no people who can win a war. Everyone loses. And I feel that the Gazatis, citizens, civilians, are also hostages by Hamas. Hamas has said, I can't remember if it was the first or the second week of the war, that they were firing thousands of rockets into Israel, and Israel was attacking by airstrike as well. So one of the big leaders of Hamas said, we are not in trouble because we have tunnels. And someone asked him, it was an interview in English, and someone asked, what about the civilians? And he says, let the UN take care of them. No one cares about them. So Hamas is not only torturing and had murdered so many Israelis, and they still have 59 hostages, they also have all Gaza hostage. And I think that maybe all the Islamic world as well, because Hamas is a problem for the rest of the Islam. So there might have been some things that Israel has done that are not okay. And I'm the first one to say that we need to go through, we need to investigate, and we need to correct, and we need to do everything. There is one clear key to solve the situation right now. If they let the hostages go, the war ends. That's it.
Thank you so much for having this conversation. And I want to ask you kind of one final question that I think kind of summarizes our discussion, which is, I know our audience desperately wants to see your family reunited, desperately wants to see all the hostages brought home. But the average American, this is a global audience, so this isn't just American, but the average person watching wherever they are, Australia, who cares? They look at themselves and they say, okay, I want to help, but I feel powerless. I mean, how can I be a part of the solution? What can I do to bring the hostages home? I'm just a random person in California or whatever it might be. So if my friend here is watching and their heart breaks for your family, their heart breaks for the Israeli hostages. How can they actually help?
Thank you so much for asking that. I believe that if you're not part of the solution, you're automatically part of the problem. There's no such a thing as neutrality. Neutrality only helps the oppressor, never the victim. So, A, everyone can help. And B, let's think and find a way of how you can help. So, if you're an American citizen, so you can call your elected officials, or you can call your congressman or congresswoman and tell them that you need them to be more involved in the solution, because as for now, the US is playing a huge role being a mediator and bringing all the pieces, all the parts together to the negotiation table and making the Israeli and Hamas sign this deal. So if you're an American, you can demand that from your government. And if you live outside the US, once again, you can ask your government to be part of that, either part of the negotiation or the pressure, or to be involved in the day after, because everyone wants to help Gaza, but then things happen and no one is taking responsibility. And I think you can also show up onto your Jewish friends and support them, because Jews all around the world has gone through an horrible year and a half of rising anti-Semitism. You mentioned Australia. The Jewish community in Australia is under huge and massive attack of hatred and hate crimes. So show up on them and tell them that you support them, and that you see that we, the Jewish people, we're kind of normal people, and we want good things for the world, not just for ourselves. And we understand that this is a battle between light and darkness. The light is the value of life, and the darkness is the Hamas terrorist, that for them, killing and even dying themselves is something sacred. So at the end, we need to decide whether we choose life or death. And everyone should decide and take a step, either on social media or in politics or whatever. And once again, being silent is being part of the problem. And before we finish, I want to say something about my two brothers-in-law, which you can see here in the picture. Yair was just released after 498 days underground, and Eitan is still in the tunnel. Eitan is the most funny person you'll ever meet. He loves singing and dancing and telling jokes, and he's an amazing uncle to my kids, and he's such a good friend. He's that guy that you can always come and ask for an advice or ask for help. And you spoke about the Ukrainian crisis refugee a few years ago. When Israel has brought those refugees from Ukraine, he applied to work with teens, 16 years old, teens who were brought from Ukraine to Israel. And I remember that I called him and I said, Eitan, I don't get it. Why did you apply for that job? You don't speak Russian nor Ukraine. How are you going to communicate with them? And he told me, Dalia, those kids are running away from a war. It doesn't matter what language. I'm going to be there for them.
Wow.
This is Eitan. He's always there for everyone. So let's be here for him, and let's save him. And he's sick, and he's in danger, and his life is in danger, and he's held at a gunpoint, and he hasn't eaten in I don't know how many days, or taken a shower, or so this is our time to show up on them.
Wow, beautifully said. Dalia, we are praying for Eitan. We are praying for your family. Toda rabah, my friend, and God bless.
Toda rabah. Thank you so much.